somebody did a book about 30 Rock, and they were interviewing 30 Rock, which is a show I just loved.
Yeah.
And I was trying to be self-deprecating to the author, and they said, "You directed a Studio 60," and I said, "Yeah, I killed it. I directed the finale." And the only thing in the book, it's one of those moments. I'm in the bookstore, and it says Bradley Whitford, directed the finale of the episode. According to Bradley, he killed it. And I was like, "That's not what I meant." Yeah, I was amazing. But no, this was
Sort of like George Clooney saying he killed the Batman franchise.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Welcome to Behind the Lens. Today, I've had him here before, actually when it was all virtual during the pandemic on the actor's side, but now he's on the other side of the camera as well with The Handmaid's Tale, directing a really powerful episode this season called Allegiance, and not only directing it, but also had a major role in this episode too. And of course, three-time Emmy winner, 8-time nominee, a 3-time Emmy winner for 3 different shows in 3 different categories. That's quite a track record. Welcome, Bradley Whitford.
It's good to be here.
Isn't that wild? I mean, yeah, you know.
It make me realize I'm luckier than I feel. I've been, this show is a continuation of a sort of extraordinary feeling of luck, because all 3 of those were in extraordinary creative experiences that also happened to be, fortunately and unfortunately, culturally pertinent.
Yeah.
And that's like sort of the
West
biggest...
Wing, Transparent, and of course Handmaid's Tale for the shows that you
Right, which is, when I was not with the show at the very beginning. I came in at the end of the second year. I know when they made this show, which was initially 2016, we didn't know that there would be this turn politically, this sort of horrific rise in racism, the possibility of, all too real possibility of the rise of fascism. It's interesting with this book. I read this book when I was just out of acting school in New York. I remember reading, this book, which I think she was writing in response to the rise of a more conservative political atmosphere with Thatcher and with Reagan, and the beginning of the backlash against feminism, and it was pertinent then. And I don't think any of us, if you want to know what your kids need to worry about, give Margaret Atwood a call.
I'll say, it's almost like watching it now, as every day goes by in this crazy world. it's almost turning into a documentary in a weird way. Things that you could never imagine happening in America or in the world.
are happening. I mean, it sounds. I'm just stating facts here. Many states are Ohio is forced. If someone is raped by their uncle, they are now forced to carry the child. Things that were absolutely unthinkable. Not to mention the total disregard for women's agency over their own body. So my career appears to be tracking the death of democracy and the fall of Western civilization.
Yeah, on that cheery note.
Yeah.
Well, it's great. You won a supporting actor for playing Commander here, Joseph Lawrence. And then now, this season, you decided you were going to direct. Now, and I think you've directed once before.
Yes, Studio 60.
Yeah.
I killed Studio 60.
You did the finale, didn't you?
I did the finale.
And that was it for the series.
Yeah, and they looked at it and they said, but yeah, and let me hasten to point out that it is a very safe way for a human being to direct. Because you are with your family. One of the most difficult things in show business is to be, a high-end 1-hour director, because you are a stranger who has to be an authority figure. It's a very difficult.
Walking into each episode may not have been there, may have been on 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
But you've been there, so that's the value here.
Yes, yeah. Now, this was something I have to say, John Wells is obviously an extraordinary showrunner. John Wells was somebody who got me, I was supposed to direct on West Wing, and I went into John to pitch an idea that I had that I wanted to work on with a writer, and I pitched the idea, and long story short, John, within a couple of days, said, I won't let you write and direct, but I'll let you write, and if you can have a draft in a week, I'll put it on TV. And then I got to write a couple of West Wings, which was one of the most extraordinary creative experiences of my life. But the point is that John Wells feels very strongly and correctly, I think, that we limit ourselves with these labels, right, and that it is beneficial to a show to bring in people with different skills. Bruce Miller said to me when he told me that I was going to get an episode to direct, which meant the world to me, he said, there is nothing you don't know now that you need to know. Which is a wonderfully
great advice,
liberating thing that my wife has never said to me.
But still, I heard you went back and rewatched the entire series.
I did, and I get truly, honestly, I still not watched every episode of The West. I find it, as an actor, I find it uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. I guess I think of it like touch football. It's like it's fun to play, not great to watch. Acting. But it makes me I truly, and I'm not proud of this because I think it's probably vain, but I just don't. I find it uncomfortable. Right. Uncomfortable to watch. I actually got in trouble in Studio 60 because Tommy Schlamme, when I was in prep, he's like, "Have you watched the show?" And I was like, "Well, you saw me at the premiere, but I haven't watched anything since." And I was like, "But I know how you do it." But I felt in this instance, and I'll tell you why in a second. The first thing I want to say is I really appreciate that thing in John, who is constantly, not just with actors, but people who started out as PAs became producers. Right. We're all capable, within the storytelling, you know, sort of kaleidoscope
Oh, yeah.
of many different things. So I really appreciate that. I could tell the moment. One of the great things about this show has been reconnecting with Lizzie, who I met when she's 17 years old.
On West Wing,
On
right?
West
Yeah.
Wing. Who I just thought of as this kid who was a ringer. It was striking how comfortable she was coming into that situation. I get to bump into her all these years later, and she is not only the star of that show, but the creative center of it.
Right.
I have never seen anybody, I really mean that, I've never seen anybody work that hard. And before she was directing, she was, she's in on every draft, she's in on every cut. Bruce very wisely saw this extraordinary talent early on and made her an executive producer, and there was some union trouble because we shoot up in Canada, and there were some reshoots that had to be done, and because I was in the DGA, Lizzie was going to do them, but she wasn't in yet, and I remember shooting these. It was just like a day of different shots.
Oh, sure, yeah.
That we needed, and she was talking about wanting to direct, and I was like, you are so, you know, you are so ready
Sure.
to direct. I mean, of any human being on the planet, I was like, Lizzie, you are ready. She knows lenses. She knows.
She knows actors. She knows everything.
Shot ideas. She knows everything. So it was really funny because she got her chance to direct the next year and was extraordinary.
And you know, I interviewed her for that right after she was shut down on the first day of shooting during the pandemic on her very first directing gig.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, we even Lizzie, who had, got COVID, and we had to, in the block that I was directing in, it was Lizzie directing and me directing, and Lizzie got COVID. And when Lizzie gets COVID and she's directing, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
There's you can get some shots of squirrels, but there's nothing important to do. Anyway, I talk with a lot of people about this, but I know I talked about this with Lizzie. It's one of the peculiar things about being an actor, that if you're as obnoxiously fortunate as someone like me, you eventually bristle. As an actor, you have to take on a psychology of submission, basically. I mean, you're a pawn in a story. Somebody has to write it, somebody has to produce it, somebody has to hire you. And if you're lucky enough, as Lizzie has been, as I have been, to be around great writers and around great directors, you eventually want to take more control in the storytelling. I have a funny story. Mike Nichols, I had a conversation with, I'm just dropping a huge name, but I happened once to have a conversation with him, and he famously, in his book, said one of the confusing things about directing is, he said, it's like sex. You are in that you are unaware of how anyone but you performs this act.
Right.
Generally, unless you're a very, interesting person, you're probably not seeing other people do what you do. And I reminded him of this, and I said, actually, on high-end television, we get fucked by a different person every week, which you thought was funny. But that's a way of expressing that you are seeing in a really wonderful way as an actor. If you're Lizzie on Mad Men or me on West Wing or Transparent, you're seeing all different kinds of directors, which I think is a huge advantage. I laughed at Lizzie for being insecure about whether or not she was ready to direct, jokingly. And then it was funny because when I got my episode, I called her and I said, I'm going to come up, and she was directing the first 2 episodes, and I'm going to trail you. And she burst out laughing and said, "You're going to trail? Why are you going to do that?"
Like an intern.
Yeah, like an intern. They actually set up a little desk and mocked me in the production office. She had to do this extraordinary episode. It was the second episode, this funeral scene, and this is how stupid it was. Like, I was getting these in prep. I was like, I don't know how to cast a horse. like, and it's one of those things. I had said I knew I wanted to direct.
Yeah.
I had laid it in there. I'm acutely aware of the obnoxious amount of opportunities I have had. I do not want to take them away from people who deserve them, but I did say early on, if the opportunity ever comes up and you think it makes sense, I would love to direct. And when Bruce called and told me that he wanted me to, I was terrified.
Did you know you were going to have that big a part in the episode? Usually it would be something where you're... Like...
No, I naively, even though I've now done this for decades, I thought, well, I'm sure it'll be what we call a bottle episode, which all interiors, because shooting exteriors is always harder, or it'll be an episode that I'm light in.
Yeah.
And I think it may be my heaviest acting episode. A logical follow-up to that, don't worry, I'll do your job for you here, Pete, the question that I know is coming is, what is it like to direct yourself?
Of course.
And Lizzie...
Clint Eastwood does it, no problem.
No
right?
problem. Lizzie said a really funny thing. Lizzie and I both share, how do I put this, an affectionate disrespect for the process of acting. She put it beautifully once in a way. You take the work seriously, but you don't take yourself seriously doing the work. Right. Lizzie is exhibit A of the emotional truth and the depths you can go to with a kind of a loose approach. The Beatles documentary is another exhibit A of what I think the creative process and the atmosphere on a set should be. It needs, for me, no matter what the material, it needs to be an atmosphere of recess rather than school. The anvil of artistry when I'm acting, as one of my children once said to me, "No offense, Dad, I've seen dogs be good in movies," which is only devastating because it's true. But Lizzie felt the same thing with this. When you're directing, you are so immersed for months in advance with every moment of that episode that, if anything, it made the acting process easier. It felt like the least difficult aspect of it. Somebody followed up with Lizzie, and again, I'm just taking your job here, Pete, and said, what about directing people who you're acting with? How do you judge other people's performances? And I'm quoting Lizzie. She said, "I've been judging other people's performances I've been acting with for decades." like you're always aware of it. I think
But still, to give them notes, you're a first-time director on the series that you've been acting on for 4 years.
Yeah, it's Home Alone. It feels a little weird. Anybody who's worked with me will know that I have a tricky relationship with directors. I feel very strongly bad actors overact, bad writers overwrite, bad directors overdirect. And there are 3 silent beats. I think if you talk to people, I don't think I am known as a Titanic monster on the set. If anything, I'm obnoxiously an enabler on a set, because I feel like that's the way I deal with my anxiety. But if I am totally honest, anytime any director has ever said anything to me, 3 silent beats. Fuck you, I suck. Okay, what? And I think every actor goes through this. We all, almost everybody gets to okay, what? But to cross the stream, you have to step on fuck you and I suck. There are some people who live on fuck you, and there's some people who live on I suck.
Yeah.
But I'm very, very aware of that, and I'm especially aware of it. There is, I actually got very upset with a director who, on West Wing it was tricky because these people would come in and it was their chance to win an Emmy.
Yeah.
And Allison Janney needs no direction.
Right.
And when an actor gets over-directed, like the zen gets sucked out of you. Your initiative atrophies. I actually find directing, the very first time I directed, I'm reading Sidney Lumet's book, and I'm terrified. What do I know? What do I not know? And when I started directing, I realized it's really like parenting. Like, you want to create some structure.
Right.
You want them to know that you want everybody to know that they're safe, but you owe your children and you owe your actors the possibility of surprising you. And I've seen this in the name drop warning. Jordan Peele does not want you to think that he knows better than you how you should do it. Steven Spielberg loves actors, does not want you to think that he knows better than you. Yeah. And I'm acutely aware of that, especially with actors who have been living these parts for a long time.
You being one of them, when you direct yourself.
Right, right, right. Lizzie did warn me.
Yeah.
You have to be careful. You don't want to be, in some destructive act of public humility undershoot yourself. And it's something Lizzie, as the center of the show, really has to be careful of.
Well, let me ask you now, too, before we have to go. In the show that you shot,
Yeah.
You weren't in the scene. I thought it was so powerful here at the end with this rally, this thing going on, and you think it's one thing, and the American flag is there, and all of a sudden those gunshots come out. People are experiencing this every day in every walk of life now in this country, and I think you were saying a lot with that scene, and very effectively.
That was, it created the most anxiety for me, because when I first read the script, I don't usually think like this, but I knew it was a situation where there was an American flag that was going to be desecrated.
Yeah.
You know, the flag getting shot was not in the episode.
Oh.
Was not in the script. By the way, none of this exists without Eric Tuchman,
Who wrote the script?
who wrote the
Yeah.
script. And at this moment in Hollywood where the writers are being undervalued, I want to emphasize that. And Yao-Lin Chang and Bruce Miller, the joy of this was you know, collaborating with them. I did feel very strongly, and it was sort of the biggest risk that I took, was I also felt that this Janelle Monáe song,
Yeah.
which talks, is an ironic expression of patriotism, was the perfect
It was.
song to go with this. And what was tricky about it, and again, like, you know, I'm not Michael Bay. It was I was very nervous because I wanted to time, and we didn't even know if we had the song.
Right. Yeah.
I wanted to time these gunshots, so it meant working with our special effects guys, because we're doing it in super slow motion. I basically, it was a nighttime shoot. If we were shooting in the winter, I would have had 10 hours, but we're outside in the summer and it was like 7 hours. By the way, anyone will tell you, when you're directing for the first time, or there's nothing more important than your DP. And Nicola Daly, who came on this year, is a huge source of collaboration, and encouragement, and understands that show. The reason I watched them all, there's a visual obligation on this show.
Mm-hmm. Keep the style.
Yes, and at first, like, I'm not a cinematographer, you know. At first, that's the most intimidating thing to me. As I rewatched it, that intimidation turned into a sort of a sense of freedom, because there's actually so much that you can do
With your collaboration with the cinematographer,
Yeah.
and
Nicola
everything. I
Daly.
mean, it really is powerful the way that goes. And you know, we know how the season 5 ended, and there is a season 6 that's
Yes.
said to be the final.
That's what I
hurrah.
hear.
And you haven't shot any of that yet. Yeah. Okay.
No. Oh, no, we have not shot that. We're going to do it. I do want to go back, and because you know that take, I'm on the phone with her.
Yeah. Where you're
And there's
back
this
and forth. Yeah.
extraordinarily painful thing. I thought it was the most amazing take. Lizzie, Liz, you want to let that horse run. There's very little. She did one take, and this is probably the best direction I could give. I went up to her and I whispered in her ear, let's do one more. Pretend I just said something brilliant and just do whatever the fuck you want. and
that was your piece of direction.
That was my direction. And then it was so funny because I'm back at the monitor. I had shot my side of it months before.
Yeah.
Because of COVID, and I forgot my lines, so I have a contacts on listening to it, and I'm doing the scene and watching the performance, but that was, and this sounds really corny, but after that take, it was so unexpected, watching her go soft in opposition to what the first instinct would be, which just opened up this whole complexity of what I think the truth of our complicated relationship in that show. And we were just talking about, like, we really had this corny moment after that of how incredibly lucky she and I are to have these experiences in these shows that have something to say, but are these extraordinarily long relationships with audiences, with these characters. It's not an experience you get doing a movie.
No, well, this is like over 4 years for you, and you know, as it was with West Wing and everything.
Yeah.
And now it's going to come to an end. I got one last question.
Yes.
You going to direct again on it, or
I hope so.
you want to?
I definitely want to.
That's you heard
I'm
it.
available. And I am interested in. We're talking to shows I'm not in about directing as well.
Oh, that's it. So this is a whole new path you're going to pursue then.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I love. I don't respect it, but I do love to act.
Yeah, I love that. Bradley Whitford, thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for caring.
Yeah.